spotlighting Hawaii's leaders.
We want to bring in Governor David E.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Lieutenant Governor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Mayor Derek Kawakami.
Thank you so much, Senator, for being here.
Spotlighting the issues.
Where is the virus right now in our community?
How much is this overall going to cost the state?
How are you responding to the community's concerns? Talk about the level of citations that you guys are writing.
Spotlight Hawaii with Yanji Denise and Ryan Kahele Suji on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Long's Drugs.
Well, aloha, happy Monday. Great to see so many of you joining us already here on Spotlight Hawaii. I'm Yanji Denise, joined by Ryan Kahele Suji. This week, we have decided to invite the Democrat candidates for governor to join us for a full half hour each. We are so excited to speak with them. Of course, the primary election is on Saturday. We do want to note that we did invite Lieutenant Governor Josh Green to join us. He had initially accepted that invitation, but his campaign later canceled, citing a scheduling conflict. So we will not be having him on as part of this series. But this morning, Ryan, we're welcoming a different candidate.
That's why I want to welcome in Congressman Kai Kahele, who is joining us this morning. We know that he has been very active on the campaign trail, so we appreciate him taking time to join us this morning. Good morning. Thanks for joining us, Congressman.
Good morning, Yanji and Ryan. It's great to be with you. Mahalo for doing this for us.
You know, we know that you spent this morning sign waving in the past few days, been sign waving a lot, gearing up for Saturday's election. Of course, people have been voting already with the mail-in ballots. But what are your thoughts going into this final push as the election is just a few days away?
You know, my dad always taught me to be the hardest worker in the room, and you play it to the final whistle. And that's exactly what we're doing, Ryan. We are working, 16 hours a day, sleeping 5 hours at night, getting up early in the morning, staying up late at night, and doing everything we can to reach and touch every voter throughout the state of Hawaii. Our campaign has now transitioned into our GOTV, or our Get Out the Vote efforts. And there's a bunch of different things we're doing to do that. Not only to encourage people to vote, to fill out their ballot, to send it in. We know voter turnout is low right now when compared to 2020 this time. And so it's giving people that sense of urgency that, hey, it's here, it's time to vote, it's primary election week, and we're doing our best to convey the message to all of those voters that maybe are still undecided, that, Kai's your guy. And I'm best equipped to lead the state of Hawaii, and would be honored to carry the Democratic nomination from August 13th until the November general election. And that's what we're doing.
You know, you and the other candidates have had a number of opportunities to interact on this program and on others. So I'm interested to know, what do you think has not been discussed that you are talking to voters about? Cost of living, affordable housing, tourism, all these issues really have been sort of asked and answered in these forums. So potentially people have heard what you have to say on that. But what are they hearing from you now that they haven't had a chance to hear in the past?
I don't think in any of the forums we got into what I feel is one of the most important issues in Hawaii today, which is campaign finance reform and election reform. We maybe dabbled in it a little bit. But there's really not much time in these very packed, tightly scripted debates to do that. And so voters are still talking about that. They're still talking about Hawaii not for sale, the outside mainland money coming into Hawaii to buy up our real estate, buy up our homes, drive up the cost of living. And right now, Yanji, what we're seeing is trying to buy our elections. Super PAC money, outside mainland money coming in to feed the final week of the coffers of my political opponents. We never really got into that. And so that's what I consistently hear from voters, that frankly are sick and tired of the status quo. They're sick and tired of the outside mainland money coming in, both super PAC money and non-resident money, to buy our elections, to flood our airwaves and our TVs with commercials and fill your mailbox with direct mail pieces. They're tired of that. And that's something that I really feel is resonating across the state and is being underestimated by the political observers that may not feel that this is a big issue in our election.
Well, we know it may not have been discussed as much as you would want in those debates, but you and your opponent in, First Lady Vicky Cayetano held a joint press conference a few weeks back, citing some of these concerns regarding the lieutenant governor and his fundraising efforts and other questions that you had about his campaigning. Why did you feel that that was important to have this rare joint press conference with your opponent in this matter to attack another opponent or bring questions up about the lieutenant governor? And maybe why wasn't this done sooner rather than this late in this campaign season?
Well, you know, and I don't think to frame it as an attack is fair. We asked legitimate questions on the debate stage of the lieutenant governor, which he failed to answer and still fails to answer to the people of Hawaii. He's the only one that has a private LLC that he will not report the sources of those incomes and where the money came from, that received the highest amount of income during the height of the COVID pandemic. And it's a fair question. He has an LLC. The question was, did your LLC profit or not profit from the COVID-19 pandemic? We don't know that. The people of Hawaii don't know that unless he releases the records. You know, everyone knows what I make at Hawaiian Airlines, my outside salary, what the First Lady receives from her laundry business, but we don't know what the lieutenant governor has made with his LLC, and the fact that he's collected up to $1 million in outside income in addition to his $165,000 taxpayer-funded salary by the people of Hawaii and this LLC is problematic for me. And I think it's problematic for the people of Hawaii that are starting to see the true colors of the lieutenant governor. It's a fair question, and one he has not answered. And so we came together in a joint press conference to ask the lieutenant governor to release those records. I also requested the Democratic Party to do the same. And up until now, we don't have those answers. And so I think it's fair for the people of Hawaii to be able to make their own decision on that.
Well, he's not here to defend himself, so we don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole. But I did want to ask you about some ideas that you shared in another forum that I was very interested in. And this also sort of goes to the issue of outside money. And this is this idea of foreign investment in land in Hawaii. We know that there are a number of outside investors who buy vacation homes or investment properties. And it's something that people in Hawaii have been talking about trying to eliminate for years now. But it does not seem that there's a legal mechanism to do so. You're saying that as governor, you would try to pursue this. How would you do that?
Well, foreign investors, Yunji, are not a protected class. United States citizens are a protected class. And it's why it's very difficult to levy any type of non-resident taxes or non-resident fees against someone who is not a resident of Hawaii that is a U.S. citizen. As a matter of fact, in Hawaii, we have the transit accommodation tax and the car rental surcharge, which is really the only two things that we can levy to tap into that tourism base or that non-resident base. And so that's why I've had and questioned the ability to levy a climate impact fee on a tourist, because I don't think it's constitutionally legal and would potentially violate the U.S. Commerce Clause. In relation to foreign investment, that's a different animal, because foreign investors are not protected class citizens. Now, it's a little dicey because the United States and the international relations that we have, especially with our U.S. allies, is very mindful through the U.S. State Department of how we treat our foreign allies and our foreign partners. But we haven't done that here in Hawaii, where we have tried to implement a law that would either prohibit or disincentivize outside foreign investors, non-U.S. citizens from coming here to Hawaii, buying land, buying timeshares, buying units down in Kaka'ako. You know, just about 3 weeks ago, we out in Makaha, a South Korean company came and bought land in Makaha for about $22 million. I have no idea why the state of Hawaii didn't buy that parcel, or the Office of Hawaiian Affairs didn't buy it, or Department of Hawaiian Homelands didn't buy it. Why did we allow a South Korean company of investors to come in and buy that piece of property? We need to change how we are managing our land assets here in Hawaii, and we need to be bolder. The office of the governor, the legislature has to be more bold when it comes to protecting our lands and protecting our local families here, because outside investors that come to Hawaii, whether they're a foreign investor or a non-resident investor, ultimately drive up the cost of housing, and they remove housing from the inventory. And that affects local families. And as governor of Hawaii, I'm going to do everything I can to address that. You know, I couldn't go to South Korea to go buy land. I couldn't go to the Philippines to go buy land. but why do we allow that here in Hawaii? These are questions that need to be asked, and I intend to pursue those if elected as governor of Hawaii.
And maybe if we can just go into a little more detail, I mean, what would that look like in terms of, would that be an additional fee? Would they not be allowed at all? I mean, what in your ideal policy, how would that be managed moving forward?
Well, this is not something we haven't discussed before. We've looked at it before. Historically, the Board of Realtors and those that are real estate agents don't support this, because any type of sale, any type of investment drives up the cost of real estate and continues to fuel the real estate market. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I think pricing out Hawaii's local families is not a good thing for Hawaii and for Hawaii's local families. And so at the end of the day, working together with the legislature, having the attorney general that I would select look at every possibility to enact this would be something that we would clearly have to do with the legislature. So it's working together with the 2023 legislature to figure out how to do this. And of course, working with our congressional delegation on the federal side of the House to address this as well. And so, it's going to be a concerted effort to be able to vet this, as would be anything that we would want to try and impose on a non-resident U.S. citizen or a foreign investor from coming here to Hawaii.
I want to ask you about Red Hill. Since the last time we were able to speak with you, the Navy released a timeline that they set out for draining the tanks. They say they need to do a number of repairs, and that's why they want to wait basically 2.5 years to complete that project. The next governor is going to have to be at the helm in that negotiation and also try to accelerate that timeline, hopefully. The state has said that they don't find it acceptable. What are your thoughts on that timeline? And if you were the governor, what could you do to force the Navy's hand on that? Because it does seem pretty hard, if you think about who you're negotiating with.
Well, first of all, 2.5 years is too long, but it has to be done safely. Now, waiting also carries risk. And as we saw last week, both the Board of Water Supply is reporting that a monitoring well here in Moanalua Valley is reporting trace amounts of jet fuel that potentially mean that the plume is continuing to move beyond the Red Hill aquifer. And we have the University of Hawaii also testing military housing, showing that there still is trace amounts of fuel in military housing. So waiting also carries risk, but we have to make sure that we can defuel the tanks as quickly as possible. And we know that from the independent assessment that was done, that there are at least 40 major infrastructure improvements that need to be made and techniques and procedures that need to be implemented before we can start draining those tanks. The Congress right now, we're looking at $1 billion to $1.1 billion, depending on the House or the Senate, that should be coming to Hawaii to facilitate the defueling and decommissioning of those tanks. Your congressional delegation is working super hard to lock that in this Congress, the 117th Congress, because with the new election coming up, that Congress could change. And there are many in the Congress that do not support the defueling and permanent shutdown of Red Hill. So we need to make sure that we can lock that in now. To answer your final question, I really believe, and clearly I'm biased, but I really believe that there is no better candidate running for governor of Hawaii who can help facilitate the defueling, decommissioning, and permanent shutdown of Red Hill. I led on this issue when I got the first phone call on Saturday night, November 20th, that there was a problem in Red Hill. My Congressman Case and I were in the lower tunnel system just 2 days later. And I was one of the first people in the state to speak out to the United States Navy in early December and to the Secretary of Defense that we had a major catastrophe at Red Hill, ultimately introduced the VI Act, and working together with the community and our elected officials, we were able to bring the Navy and the Pentagon to the ultimate decision that they needed to shut this down. And this was a concerted effort by all of us. It was the efforts of Ernie Lau, Elwin Kuata, Kathleen Pahinui, the Board of Water Supply, our county council here, City and County of Honolulu, elected officials like myself, the congressional delegation, the legislature. No one singular person shut down Red Hill. We did it together. The members of the community came out and banded together. And that's what we can do when we work together with a collective effort. And I was proud to be able to help convene that effort and move the Navy to where they needed to go. And if you think about it, it took almost 20 years for the United States Navy to stop bombing Pearl Harbor. It took us 4 months for them to come to the realization that they had to shut down and defuel the Red Hill bulk fuel storage facility. And that's because of all of our efforts as an island community. It's a testament to what is truly possible when we have leadership and we can work together. And as governor of Hawaii, there is no one better equipped to lead the effort of shutting down Red Hill. You know, I've been in the United States military for 22 years. I'm a current lieutenant colonel at the Hawaii Air National Guard. I'm the only candidate running for governor that's a sitting member of the House Armed Services Committee. I have the relationships at the Pentagon, at the White House, in the United States Congress. And as governor of Hawaii, will hold the United States Navy and the Indo-Pacific Command their feet to the fire to shut down this facility as quick as possible. I understand the military. I've been in the military. And I bring that experience to the office of the governor that no candidate on the Democratic ticket currently has.
I want to talk a little bit more and expand on that relationship that you're speaking of, because as a Native Hawaiian yourself, you know that there are many in the Native Hawaiian community who have lost trust. And, you know, I disagree with a lot of what the U.S. military is doing. And you've even called for potentially looking at some of these military leases on some of the lands that they have throughout the state. How do you believe that this relationship with the U.S. military can continue to move forward in a positive direction, given what we know about Red Hill and some of the other, you know, things that have happened to the Native Hawaiian community at the hands of the U.S. military? How do you bridge that gap and find that common ground when there has been so much distrust amongst this community?
You know, it's what I bring to this campaign, to the office of the governor, right? We have the office of the governor has not had someone that has worn a military uniform in 40 years. Last person was Governor Ariyoshi. You know, the experience that I bring, the relationships I bring, understanding the mindset of how the military thinks is really important with the office of the governor, because the next 4 years, the next 8 years are going to be some of the most challenging years ahead, especially working together with the military. The military has lost an incredible amount of trust in our community, especially here on the island of Oahu and statewide, because of Red Hill and how they've handled that. They have a lot of work to do to rebuild that trust. In addition to that, we have 19 military land leases that are all going to expire in 2029. Pohakuloa, Kaena Point, the Pacific Missile Range out at Barking Sands. There's other land leases, Makua Valley. All of these are critical land leases for the military that they're in the process of renegotiating. I've been firm in my position that $1 a year leases is a thing of the past, and that if the United States military is going to continue to lease state lands on these 19 pieces of lands that they currently occupy and train on, that they're going to have to move in a different direction. And it's going to have to be a direction that works together with the Native Hawaiian community, is mindful of the environment and the impacts that the military has on the environment. But I think at the same time, we also have to recognize that the United States military plays a critical role in Hawaii, not just for our safety, for our national defense, but also for our workforce. You know, the Pearl Harbor shipyard employs thousands of local families and local workers that work there in very highly technical, good paying federal civil service jobs. There's a lot of people that work and contribute to our United States military, and they do a good job at contributing to our communities as well. But at the same time, they drive up the cost of housing because we have thousands of military families living out in our residential communities. And when catastrophic events like Red Hill happen, it is really important that the United States military, from the get-go, handle those situations in a very, very careful way and include the Native Hawaiian community and the broader local community at the table. And Red Hill was an example of exactly what the United States Navy and the military should not do. And I tried my best to convey to them, hey, you're screwing this up. You should be doing this. You need this type of expertise. And unfortunately, it fell on deaf ears. And so bringing my experience to the office of the governor, working together with Admiral Aguilino and whoever is the future Indo-PACOM commander, as well as the other 4 stars, is going to be really important moving forward. And this administration is going to be the administration to deal with that. Those 19 military land leases I talked about, those all fall under the Board of Land and Natural Resources and DLNR. So whoever the next governor appoints as the next director of DLNR, the next deputy director, are going to be critical positions in how we negotiate with the United States military moving forward.
I want to ask you about the stadium. You, unlike your opponents, have said that you would not support a stadium project rebuild and would support housing there instead. You know, part of the rail project, it's going right through there. And one of the big sells was that they would have rail going from town to the stadium. And then obviously out farther toward Kapolei. So if you take away the stadium, don't you think that that would have a pretty big impact on the rail project? And also, why do you think that not having a stadium in Halawa is a better choice?
So I look at it as the reverse. I look at it as if we build housing on this piece of property, and think about it. Where else between Pearl Harbor and Waikiki do we have state or county parcels that resemble anything like the parcel at Aloha Stadium, which is almost 100 acres? We don't. And so when we began this conversation, you talked about the important bread and butter issues here in Hawaii. And affordable housing is always the top issue in an election. And if it is our top issue, then we should be building housing here on the island of Oahu. And we should utilize this site as the most valuable site we have to build housing. I believe if we either put rail or we put the stadium at UH Manoa on the lower campus, or we put the stadium out on in West Oahu, we will compel us to finish rail from its current projected site where it's going to end at Ala Moana to UH Manoa, and we can add on the rest of rail going to Kapolei. So first of all, let's build housing on the Aloha Stadium site. I can't conceive why we would put $500 million almost into a stadium project when we can't even finish the rail project. That's a major public works project. I think we can have both, Yanji. I think we can have 10,000 homes in the Aloha Stadium parcel site. And I really believe that we can have a stadium either at the University of Hawaii or out in West Kapolei, depending on the size of the stadium. And I believe we can have it all. It's going to take a lot of tough decisions to do that. The legislature's already appropriated money to do that. But, make no mistake, until we put the shovel in the ground and we start the project, we can reverse course on this. And I think it's something that we need to do. And I've been an outspoken critic of the stadium site. I also stand with 3 former governors, Governor Waihe'e, Governor Abercrombie, and Governor Cayetano, who all call for housing to be built at the Aloha Stadium site rather than a stadium. And so I think I'm spot on here. And as governor of Hawaii, I'll do everything I can within my power, working together with the legislature to move this project in a different direction. At the end of the day, we can have both. We can have housing, we can address Hawaii's housing crisis, especially here in urban Honolulu, and we can have a stadium either at the University of Hawaii, 25,000 seat stadium, or we can have it out in West Oahu, 40,000 seat stadium, a sports tourism complex, and we can finish rail to the University of Hawaii at Manoa, which is absolutely critical to connect UH Manoa and UH West Oahu.
I want to circle back quickly about something that you brought up briefly, and that was that climate impact fee that you were questioning that has been proposed by other candidates in this race for visitors entering our islands. And really, this was done to try to put some sort of cap or, sort of create a fee, if you will, for those who are entering the state. Now, you've already questioned if that would be legitimate and legal. But what other ideas would you propose to keep tourism balanced and sustainable, given the numbers that we're seeing right now this summer and what we saw pre-pandemic?
Well, and let's just think about the climate impact fee, right? How would you levy it? How would you assess it? Where would you collect it at? Is that going to drive down tourism? No, it's just going to continue to tax tourists from coming here. Yeah, it'll create revenue if it's legal, but it doesn't address over tourism. The climate impact fee does nothing to address over tourism. What addresses over tourism is the opportunity for us to model Hawaii a different way. And I believe we can do that through the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement and the opportunity for Native Hawaiians, for the first time in its history, to market and communicate the message of aloha and to the world, to market our tourism and brand it a different way. We can do it through destination management plans and do it through a more culturally indigenous experience when people come here to Hawaii, that they're educated when they come to Hawaii on places they can go, places they're not supposed to go, things that they're not supposed to do or be mindful of. People want to do that. When they come here to Hawaii, I believe they want that genuine, authentic cultural experience, but we're not seeing that right now. We have created the monster that we have. 10 million visitors a year. What we see down in Waikiki right now. I mean, look at the video yesterday of a person that potentially had a handgun on Waikiki Beach, and you saw people scrambling and running all over the place. You have street performers on every single corner. I mean, that's not the Waikiki I remembered growing up. And so we need to look at a different way to manage Hawaii. We also need to control our infrastructure. If you want to control how many tourists come in, then don't expand the airport. Don't add on 2 more gates at Lihui if you want to control tourism on the island of Kauai. More expansion, more infrastructure means more tourists are going to come in. And that's something that, we need to address as governor of Hawaii, working together with the next Department of Transportation director, the next deputy director of airports. I will be able to utilize the infrastructure bill and the infrastructure funds to help shape that. Working together with the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, working together with the Hawaii Tourism Authority, I really believe we can manage tourism a different way here in Hawaii, and educate our malihini so that when they come to Hawaii, they know that they're coming to our home. These are the places that we live, that we grew up in, and that they need to be mindful of that. And I believe they do, but you have to educate them on that, and you have to give them an authentic experience so that when they come to Hawaii, they leave it better than when they found it. And that is a primary component of regenerative tourism, and we can give visitors an opportunity to experience that, and we can do it here in Hawaii.
Over the weekend, the Senate passed landmark climate legislation. This is something that is really being hailed by the Democrats, and now unexpectedly, the House is being called back. For your timeline, it is unfortunate because it happens the day before the election that we are expecting the House to have to vote on this on August 12th. So what are your travel plans this week? How will you balance both duties?
Well, Friday I'll be in Hilo getting ready for election, but the House right now, Yunji, is in recess. The House, the entire month of August is a scheduled district work period, and so the United States Senate sudden realization that we needed to pass this bill very, very quickly. You saw how quickly they moved in about a week. Once they got Senators Manchin and Sinema on board, they were able to move this bill quickly. It is now sitting in the House, and it will be voted on for final passage in the House on Friday. Many members are traveling. They're out of the country. Individuals like myself are back home running their campaigns, and this is campaign season. And so members of the House, especially those that live close to Washington, D.C., will be coming in, and voters like myself, or members like myself, will be voting via remote voting, just like I've done since I was sworn in on January 3rd, 2021. Participating either through committee hearings or through voting via remote voting. And, I also would like to know, because my voting record keeps coming up in the U.S. Congress, that I have had a 100% voting record this entire year. I have not missed a single vote, and I'm not going to miss Friday's vote. And it's the opportunity to participate under, really, COVID conditions and what we've been dealing with through COVID, the opportunity to participate remotely in Washington, D.C., but be back home in your district with your constituents, with your people. And for me, getting ready for what I hope to be a historic Saturday night here in Hawaii with our primary election.
As things wind down here, we have just a few more minutes, but wanted to get your final thoughts as you head into this home stretch. This has been a crazy election cycle, and at times things have gotten pretty ugly, and there has been a lot going back and forth between the various campaigns. How do you move forward as a party with so much happening between the candidates and so much being said? How do you move forward as a party beyond this? And your final thoughts as you head into this home stretch here?
Well, this has been a difficult campaign. And, for me, I launched this campaign on May 7th with 98 days before the August 13th primary. And Ryan, I'm trying to do, what no candidate running for governor who has had a fighting chance has ever tried to do in the history of this state. Accept no more than $100 donations, refuse corporate money, refuse PAC money, not have a single political fundraiser. When have you ever heard of a candidate for governor not having a single political fundraiser? Not even a $20 chili rice event at Auntie Sally's Luau Hale down there in Hilo. What I'm trying to do is what no candidate in the state has ever done, and that is to win this election a different way, to take money out of politics, to take money out of campaigns, and to really put the power back in the hands of the people. And so at the end of the day, my campaign motto is Hawaii not for sale. And the question is clear in this race. Is Hawaii for sale, or is Hawaii not for sale? If Hawaii is not for sale, then I'm asking for your vote. And I'm asking to take this state in a new direction. And I hope I can earn that and get an opportunity to move past August 13th to the November general. How we come back together is something we obviously have to do. I also believe that the Democratic Party, just like the state of Hawaii, is at an inflection point. And we have to have that come to realization moment that people are questioning their elected leaders. They're questioning the parties that they're a part of. And if that resonates with their values, and if that resonates with things that are important to them. And I think the Democratic Party is also facing those challenges. And I've messaged it to them. You know, I said, we need to do and take this party in a different direction before we become unrelatable to the next generation of voters that you rarely see at our events. And so this is something that we're working really hard on. I'm trying to be the change, to demonstrate that we can change. It takes courage to change. But I hope at the end of the day that we've done everything we can to give the people of Hawaii a choice in this election. And that's what our campaign is all about, to give them a choice and to be a catalyst for the next generation of leaders across this state. And I really believe that if we can demonstrate that we can win on Saturday night, that we will shock and reverberate a message across Hawaii and across the nation that we have to take our message in a different direction. And we have to return the power to the people, take money out of politics, and really get back to grassroots organizing and people-to-people connections, and not let money and power and influence and the media influence the outcome of the elections. And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of that has been happening for the last few months.
I know we're out of time, but I have to ask you, because I see them with you everywhere, your young daughters, what do you hope they remember from this experience? And then we'll let you go, because I know you got to get back out there.
Yeah, they're having the time of their lives. You know, my little girl, Namaka, she writes her Namaka for governor, no more than $100 donations on our refrigerator, and we got them put up all over the house. Just think about that. What we're doing in this election is inspiring people all across this state, including my young little girls, to do things a little bit differently, to do it in a different way. And they're so excited about Saturday night. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but no matter what, Yanji, family is the most important thing in our lives. My children are the most important thing in my and Maria's lives. And no matter what happens Saturday night, family is everything. And we're going to move on forward together as a family. And I'm so excited to be able to come back home to them. It's been a long 2 years, and I'm looking forward to being a daddy. I'm looking forward to hopefully being their governor. And together, we're gonna bring enthusiasm and young children and kids back to Washington Place, and it's going to be so much fun. And I really believe we can touch every child across Hawaii. And it's going to be an exciting Saturday night. And so, mahalo.
All right, Congressman Kai Kahele joining us this morning from the campaign trail. Thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Okay. Aloha, everyone.
Aloha.
Take care.
Aloha.
Bye-bye.
Great to hear from him. And we touched a number of issues. We talked about Red Hill. We talked about over-tourism, and an interesting proposal that he has to eliminate foreign investment in Hawaii lands by basically restricting it either through tax procedures or, banning it in some way outright. He says it's something that he would work with the legislature on. Ryan, we've heard people gripe about foreign investment in Hawaii for a long time, but there's been a lot of hurdles to actually restricting that. And he says that as governor, that is something that he would prioritize.
Yeah, we also got his thoughts on Red Hill, again, stating that he is the best suited person to tackle this issue moving forward, noting that the next administration will have to deal with this Red Hill issue and defueling it, saying that his military experience, as well as his ties to the Native Hawaiian community, have made him the perfect candidate to help to oversee this transition, while also holding the military accountable for other leases that they hold, and also building up on the relationship between the community here in Hawaii and the U.S. military. We also heard from him on his stance, again, further clarification on Aloha Stadium, his cause for housing in that area rather than a stadium in that facility area, and moving the stadium on campus or out to West Oahu. But also getting his thoughts on where the campaign has been going over the past few days, or past few weeks, I should say, and attacks that have gone back and forth between both sides and accusations. It has been kind of a crazy last few weeks here as we head to the home stretch.
Absolutely. And we do want to clarify, Vicky Cayetano will be appearing with us here on Wednesday. We did invite Lieutenant Governor Josh Green just for fairness for a half an hour. Again, he initially agreed, and then citing a scheduling conflict, his campaign pulled out of this opportunity. So we want to make it very clear that we did give everybody an opportunity for equal time on this on the Democratic side, but only Congressman Kahele and Mrs. Cayetano have agreed to join us. She'll be coming here on Wednesday. And again, if you missed any part of our conversation, very interesting to hear about his, thoughts on the dynamics of the race. And I had to ask him about his kids because, Ryan, you see those two little girls with him everywhere he goes, along with his older daughter as well. And so it's interesting to hear how he's approaching that as a dad and what he hopes they get out of being with him on the campaign trail. Yeah,
and you heard him say they're looking forward to Saturday. We'll have to wait to see what happens then. We're looking forward to the conversation on Wednesday with candidate Vicky Cayetano. Until then, take care, and we'll see you right back here for another edition of Spotlight Hawaii at 10:30 on Wednesday. Aloha.
Aloha.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Longstrugs.